3 years ago, I was wrong. At a departmental meeting, I proposed that studying theory, that is, theory with a capital T, offered no benefit to our much more practical students. Dr. Kalima Young has proved me wrong. I saw this firsthand sitting in the back of her class during a peer evaluation. I visited Professor Young to reflect on the existential reality of the university professor, in whom scholarship and pedagogy intersect.
I've been teaching in college, like I was an adjunct for a really long time, so I started adjuncting in 2007. Mm-hmm. I ran an adolescent HIV program at the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
I didn't know
So yeah, I've been working with young people for a really long time and seeing the shift. I started doing public health work with young people in like 2000. So
this is a whole dimension I didn't know.
Yeah. So I've seen an interesting shift happen with young people. And in the classroom, one of the things I see right now is there's a disconnect between what they're told they're supposed to know and what they actually want to do. Every semester, some student will come to me and ask, will I get a job? I was in my office, it's my open office hours. A student came in who's been doing really well in my class. And they're actually in my African American cinema class. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to determine what she wanted to do. She thought she wanted to do production, but now she's been in my theory class and she's just like, I don't know. So she comes in and she's like, I need to make sure that if I've put all this money in, that I have a job after I'm done with school.
And what did you say?
And I was just like, you can always have a job. Like, jobs will always exist. But do you want to be defined by your job? Or do you want to be defined by the things that you're passionate and that stimulate you? Yeah, I'm curious about that, but can I get a job with it? And I said, if it's something that you're invested in, if it's a question that you want answered, if it's something you're passionate about, you will always find a way to make work. You will always find a way to make a living from it. I think a lot of that learning environment is from my experience in adolescent health.
Yeah.
Because for years, I was engaging young people and groups of young people around topics that made them feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Sexual health, their resources, the resources they do and do not have, and creating an environment where young people feel comfortable being vulnerable and not knowing everything was exactly what I was trying to do as a public health researcher and as an interventionist.
Yeah.
And my job is to be as human as possible in the classroom so that they can be as human as possible in the classroom too. And I find that when we create the space of being really human with one another, folks are a little more inclined to maybe get something wrong because you know how it is. You don't want to be seen as...
Yeah, exactly. You have a background in, as I said earlier, was in our department as being really the theory. You're our theory anchor. Mm-hmm. Like you bring that, to the department. So how do you? Can you give me any kind of random specifics on how those things connect?
My research. As I look at the impact of race and gender-based trauma on Black identity formation and Black cultural production. Now, I could think about trauma from a very heady perspective, right? And keep it up in the ether.
Right.
But no, I try to bring it down into the embodied experience of trauma.
And specifically including media.
Right. Yes, and specifically including media. So as you are watching a text, what is your actual physical body going through? What moments from your past are coming up as you're watching this text? how is that moment of trigger, like time travel, right? How is it forming how you're embodied in the world? And then what are you making in response?
Right.
And what is that process?
Right.
So I feel like my theory is really grounded in what it's actually literally doing to the body and to the way that we think and the way that we interact in space. And I think that's why it ends up being able to be very like applied in the classroom. In my African American cinema class,
Right.
because I teach critical race theory in that class and use film as the sort of mechanism to understand critical race theory. When I'm introducing students to this concept of stereotype threat, right? The idea that there's a stereotype, you don't want to adhere to that stereotype, you are the only person of your type in a particular space, and then you end up making a mistake which then proves the stereotype right? How stereotype threat just gets in the way of us being our optimal self. And as I'm describing this theory, I was looking across and I saw one of my male students in class, and his eyes filled up with water, right? And I'm like sort of talking about this process. And then I called on him. I was just like, do you have some thoughts? What's going on? And he was just like, I feel like this all of the time. Right? And I was like, well, what does it actually feel like? And I was like, how does your body feel right now? And he's like, well, I see everybody looking at me. Right? So we're all like laughing. And we're like, okay. And he's just like, and I know that, dudes ain't supposed to cry, And the other dudes were just like, no, you can cry, it's fine, right? And we just had this very human moment where he was describing what was going on in his body. And I was like, do you want to tell us the incident that this worked out for you? And he was just like, and he talked about being a football player and feeling like he's not really good and like he's supposed to be really good, but he doesn't think he necessarily is. And it was like such a human moment of taking the applied theory, seeing how it's impacting students, getting them to talk about it right there in the present, and making it stick. So then when we watched In the Heat of the Night and we're analyzing Sidney Poitier and stereotype threat, it all made some sense, right? And that's the kind of experiences that I try to facilitate, where we're going to take this theory and we're going to be really interventional and apply it.